Hey, this is Josh here. Welcome to the Everything Paranormal Show. And today we're going to be discussing Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the myth, the legend. And joining me today is going to be Dave from Bigfoot Hunters. Dave, welcome to the show, and I appreciate you joining me. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. Just excited to talk everything Sasquatch and let people have a better insight on everything.
Excellent. Excellent. So, of course, tonight's subject is going to be Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti. I guess it's probably almost one and the same all over the world. There's been hundreds of sightings, and of course, I would say the history goes way back. Native Americans, even maybe further beyond that, and of course, I think the mainstream popularity was, of course, the Patterson film. So let's just start out by taking a look at who are Bigfoot. Well, to answer that, what do you think, Dave? Who's Bigfoot?
So, in my opinion, Bigfoot, first of all, is a real creature. It's not nothing overly eccentric. How some people have different theories about it. I think it's a living, breathing thing. And as far as supernatural goes, I think that as far as Native American stories I've heard, as far as they think that Sasquatch might disappear. That's why they never can find it, and they leave it alone and respect it. So as far as some of the stories I've heard from Native Americans, maybe Sasquatch could be a part of supernatural, but I tend to lean more towards it's a creature that just does not want to be found, and that's about as much as I go with it.
Now, Bigfoot tends to be. It seems like it's found in a lot of places, of course, all over the world. But I guess tonight we'll probably just focus more on the North American continent. And so, where would you say seems to be the greatest concentration of reports?
Mm. Uh, as far as the greatest, I mean, you would obviously want to go with, Northern California. You would want to go with Washington State, obviously. And Canada's, these are the major top hotspots. Now, as far as, the Yeti and stuff, in other countries, obviously like Tibet but as far as North America goes, your main hotspots is California, Washington State, and Canada.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely seems like that Pacific Northwest region seems to harbor. I think when you have an area that's very dense, and woods and mountains. I mean, it's gonna give the natural cover for these creatures. So Dave, just tell us a little bit about maybe some of your kind of background in Bigfoot, on how you kind of came about things and what brought you up to this point, really.
Yeah, so as far as Bigfoot, I wasn't really born into something like, specific, that hooked me. It's always one of those, things you hear growing up and you kind of cling to it. And then obviously seeing um, the Patterson Gremlin film, that was just, seeing that as a young kid. I'm not that old, anyways. I'm still, basically a kid. And so seeing that when I was really young, it got me super hooked. And obviously, you have Monster Quest documentaries, you have many different shows finding Bigfoot, and so after Finding Bigfoot came out a few seasons in, it really motivated me to start doing it because I like as you mentioned, dense woods and stuff, which I happen to have been raised in. So dense woods, creeks, swamps, stuff like that, and I started really, really getting into it, researching tree knocks. What are those? Everything you could think of, howling. And so, as far as background, growing up on it, was watching shows, and that was my main thing. Finding Bigfoot comes out, I actually start, actually wanting to go on expeditions and going in the woods and
Right.
how doing howls, tree knocks, and that's what really got me hooked.
Now, for the maybe for some of the people that don't know a lot about Bigfoot, What is the term tree knocking? Can you explain that a little bit more for people?
So tree knocking, I mean, it's really as basic as the name. It's something that is it's one of the biggest indicators of a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, whatever. And same thing as howl. So when you search for Bigfoot, obviously you gotta be very careful and not to confuse it with other animals, like howls. You can easily get it confused with a coyote, for example. And so with tree knocking, usually if you go on a Bigfoot hunt or whatever, you take a tree branch, anything you hit against a tree, and it makes a loud snapping noise. And then if you get responses to that, that is a huge indicator that you are in touch with a Sasquatch. Now, as far as making sure that it's a pretty easy way of telling it's a Sasquatch. If it's like a little snap, it could be like a little animal, but it's pretty easy to determine. If you look at any of the documentaries, anything, it's pretty loud. So it's basically what it is.
If somebody was to, so that kind of brings up another thing for me is that if somebody was to go out into the woods, let's say that they get into Bigfoot and they're like, man, I want to go on my own little hunt. I mean, do you think it requires a little bit of wildlife expertise in a way? Because if you go out in the woods, I mean, there's a lot of crazy sounds out there. To the amateur person, some of those sounds could be misconstrued very easily. So, do you think they should be knowledgeable? Should they have a guide? I mean, what do you think about for the amateur person going out in the woods?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question. It's very important. Obviously, you have to have some common sense, and especially because you have street smarts, you have all kinds of smarts. Especially if you're raised in like creeks, swamps, in the woods, in the country. You obviously have a background. You know a little bit about alligators, how lethal they can be.
Right.
Bears, all kinds, snakes, moccasins, anything. Um, and
And some of those
so
make some pretty scary sounds.
yeah, so if you're going in the woods and I mean, you, everybody really knows about an alligator. So in my part where I grew up, if you go out in the woods, you see them all the time, but you have to have respect for them. You don't just go out there. You have to have a little bit of knowledge. And it's one of those things where if you're going to do it, you always got to be prepared, especially if you're not knowledgeable about going in the woods or wildlife in general. You know, a guide would obviously be preferable and recommended. And again, it's just one of those things. If you grew up in the country,
Right.
there's just a common sense thing. You just don't go out there unprepared.
Right. Now, I guess the other thing is when you're out there. Um, Now, I will say that some of the things that I've looked at, I do know that the Native Americans who were in these lands in America, in America, obviously way well before us, they've had a history of these things, and
Oh
there's quite a few tribes that have different names for them depending on the tribe.
yeah,
I know, like the Zuni Indians, which were southwestern, they used to call them Atasaiya,
yep,
and it actually means the cannibal demon. The Cherokee, their term referred, they were basically calling the Stone Man. The Chinook
yeah,
Indians it was the evil god of the woods. The Shoshone was cannibal giant. So all of these terms don't sound that good.
no,
And I know that in accordance to just even some of those tribes, that they were known to take small children, even small animals. In fact, some of the discipline of the Native Americans, the way they would discipline their children sometimes they would threaten to leave them by the edge of the woods
yeah,
for the basically the evil god of the woods to come take them if they were bad. So I mean, so I guess with that being said, I mean, the Native Americans are saying, hey, these things can be pretty dangerous. So, how do you take that into account? Or do you feel that maybe they're not as that bad. I mean, where do you fall on that spectrum on Bigfoot?
Well, obviously, when you're, I mean, and I'm familiar with all those type of stories. I mean, they still go on today. People still talk about these kind of stories, and so you have to keep in mind the description because, again, we're going to get into this, but we basically don't really know a lot about Bigfoot in general. We know about general appearance and, a footprint, howling sounds that are decipherable from other animals, tree knocking. But as far as the description, you're talking about a creature that is 7 to 10 foot tall. It could be anywhere from 5, 600, 800,000 pounds. There's all kinds of reports. But when you're talking about something like that, that does not want to be messed with, you know, as you should know as well, as like alligators, bears and stuff, they're lethal, they're big, but as long as you stay away from them, you don't bother them sometimes, they're not going to mess with you, but that doesn't mean they're not lethal.
Right.
So as far as Sasquatch, man, I don't know if they're herbivore, omnivore, or carnivore. So, um, I think they had so much respect for him back then that, and probably still to this day, that, it was one of those good little things that, they just told their kids, stuff like that.
Right.
So,
So now, all right. So let's look at some possibilities. All right. So I think there's going to be sort of two major categories, it seems like, for possibilities. There's a large group of believers that say, well, this is just an undiscovered North American ape that may have came over on the land bridge at some point, and it's just this new bipedal species. Or there's also sort of a supernatural background that dates back to some of the days of Nephilim and giants and some of these mutations, and some people believe that that's why they're still not found, because they're, again, possess some of these. In fact, I think it was even according to some of the Lakota elders that Bigfoot was at one time a reptile that could change into a hairy beast, and sometimes even coyotes. Like, they refer to them like tricksters. Almost when you get into I almost don't want to say the word, but skinwalkers. They were known for being tricksters and things like that. So almost something along those lines. So, what is your theory on supernatural or ape theories?
So obviously, I'm going to lead towards more the land bridge that existed, and obviously, one of the things that we're going to talk about again in the podcast, the Patterson film. So when you see the famous glance back at from from Sasquatch, you see something that's seen in primates. So a normal human, when they look at something to their side, they just turn their head. That's all they do, and it's not over exaggerated. There's nothing like overly done about it. You just look. That's all you do. With primates, when they look to something to their side, they look to the right, but they bring their body with them.
Right.
So when you look at the Patterson film, same exact thing. So I think it has to be related to some sort of primate, because a land bridge existed here thousands of years ago, and they've had all that habitat, woods. That's what they adapted to. That's them. As far as supernatural goes, Native American Indians, like I told you earlier in the podcast, that there was report, from the Native American elders and stuff, that they thought they disappeared, why they could never be found. They were mystical, supernatural, just like how you were explaining. And I don't know. I mean, they could be so masterful of their environment. They have to be not be found this long. But as far as where they go and stuff like that, I think they're just masters of their land, and they're just so good at not being found, not wanting to be seen or anything like that. So I don't lean more towards supernatural. I lean towards that they're just masters of their environment, and you're not going to find them if they don't want to be found.
Right. And now we talked about, or as we kind of talked a little bit about the Patterson film. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Many people know I'm not going to have to worry about if y'all don't know what the Patterson film is, just Google it and you're gonna see. You'll probably go, oh yeah, that one. It's the most epic Bigfoot one. So, what is sort of your take on that? Like, was there certain things? Because I know that it has been scientifically evaluated. Okay.
Oh, no question.
So, but what do you think? Like, what's some of the things? I know you touched on a little bit. So what do you think about it?
So overall, I think what you're watching there is 100% real. Now, obviously, if you don't know the backstory behind, how they were, looking into props, they were looking, there's a little bit of backstory behind it. But if I think if it was faked, they would have obviously came out with more fakes. They could have easily done it. But that is a piece of footage that you're seeing a real Bigfoot in. Now, people say, "Oh, that's just a person in a suit." Now, you have to keep in mind the timeline about this. This is in the 1960s, so you're not getting some now futuristic-looking, great quality suit. Back
Right.
then, the suits would have been terrible. Like they would not even. It just would have been bad.
Right.
The Planet of the Apes. If you watched that back in those days, even those
And
suits
that
they
was
look,
award winning.
yeah, award winning, and it doesn't look anywhere near as realistic as the Patterson film. Because if you look at the Patterson film, what you see is the uh, the turn of its head with its shoulder. That's something primates do. Humans don't do that. That would have been very weird to fake that if they would even known about that back then. As because back then people didn't really know much about gorillas in and of themselves. And as far as you could see the breast, that you can see the muscle tone, you can
Right.
see the butt, the quads, everything, just the stride. I mean, it was, and you said it's been scientifically evaluated. Now, I want to touch on that because that's very important. On I think it was Monster Quest documentary I watched years ago, and it's kind of faded from memory a little bit. But what I do remember is that they took a very tall, in shape individual and they tried to, in a lab, reconstruct the way the Patterson film Bigfoot was walking.
Right.
And it was just, and the person could not do it. It was so weird because it was so natural. The arms swinging, the turn of the head,
Right.
it's just, these are details that, unless you're educated on it, you would think, oh, it's just a guy in a suit. But even suits now, you can look up a Bigfoot suit, anything. They don't even look they're still terrible. It's just, it's little keen details that if you pick up on it, it'll change your whole opinion.
Right. And and those are good points because I mean, when I told my wife I was going to be doing the episode on Bigfoot, she kind of was just like, well, she's not a big believer of
Yeah.
Bigfoot, and and I try to be open minded. My wife's pretty open minded on things, but I kind of went back and she had mentioned some things, and I had kind of went back and did even more research and wanted to learn more history, and that's when I came across a lot of the Native American stuff, the
Right.
history behind it, and even the Patterson video, as you mentioned, they did try to recreate that with some actors and things, and it was very awkward. It was very hard to even try to get down. They went to the top, Hollywood outfit makers, prop makers,
Yeah.
and things like that, and again they corroborated that. Yeah, for the times, uh, there just would not have been the the right the materials
Hmm.
to try and do a suit that would show up like it did on the film. But what I found really awesome is that they went there, they 3D scanned the original location, they lined everything up, they did calculate it out that the person in the video was about 7 foot 6 inches.
Yeah.
So that's odd in itself because there's not a lot of 7.5 foot tall people. In fact, the odds are 1 in 100 million.
Yeah.
So that's in itself. Also, what I thought what I found unique about the Patterson video was that they went in and of course one thing about when the Hollywood when they try to fake things, of course
Yeah.
now they've got CGI, but back then one of the things that always they had a hard time with was lining up the knees. The
Yeah.
knees, because the arms could have been arm extensions. Like they
Yeah.
really can't say like, well, that is something that they could have faked.
Yep.
But the knees in proportion to the hips,
Yeah.
so even when they were talking about the knees to the hips to even the shoulders where the head was, all those proportions were just a little off. So to find a human that could even have fit in those proportions with those odd, from your knee to hip, all of that, and be 7'6", all of that, just there's no way that they could have lined that up. So that is something I did find interesting because I'll be honest with you, like I've always been open minded about Bigfoot, but when it comes to the Patterson video, I guess I never fully vested myself in it. So I just kind of thought, it was probably like his partner in a suit. You know what I mean? And I thought, I was like, well, it's the other guy, because there was like two of them apparently. And I was like, well, it's probably just the other guy in a suit and trying to walk goofy footed and this and that. But then when they really broke it down and I actually looked at the actual forensic evidence of all of that, it was very interesting. And I will say it did change my mind on that, on the Patterson film. It is pretty cool to see that. So I just wanted to share that since you and I talked last.
I mean, it's just when you know the little details, man, it puts you from level 1 to level 10. You know what I mean? Your whole perspective changes.
Right.
Because again, you have to that suit. Like, if that was a suit, that'd be years in advance. That suit looks so real. If it's a suit, that is the most realistic for the 1960s. Again, suits now don't even look good, and it's just it's one of those things, man.
Yeah, and I think to hit on your point there too, it's like when people go out and do their first like ghost hunts and things, and the first time they actually hear like an EVP or something that they know they were there. They heard it for themselves. They know the evidence is true. When you just sit back and you look through a screen or you sit from a distant location, it's easy to kind of judge and say, that's not real. That's fake. Or, but when you're there and you capture the evidence, it takes you to that next level and your eyes, I guess, open a little more. So you're right. It takes you to another level. So even just preparing for this show with some of the research I did, it did open my eyes and maybe took me to another level. Am I going to go run out and buy a bunch of Bigfoot stickers and put on my car and go out and do a Bigfoot hunt? Probably not. But I think it's cool. I can see where the appeal is for people to want to try to find, just like the appeal of ghost hunting, to try to prove that paranormal exists and those type of things. I can see where people would want to go out and prove that this thing is real and that it does exist. There's definitely many stories. So speaking of stories though, what is kind of your, I guess, what's the closest that you've been to an actual Bigfoot experience?
Okay, so before I actually talk about that, the main reason why, which stems from that, is the reason I have my Bigfoot Hunters page, is because I realized that, you'd be naive to think that you're gonna find Bigfoot or you're gonna find a ghost, you're gonna find a UFO. Your chances are so slim. Like, it's not even, you can't even comprehend sometimes how little your chances of even experiencing anything throughout a whole lifetime, even if you were solely dedicated to it. So, my page gives a platform to everybody in their experiences. So it doesn't matter where you're from. I have people from everywhere around the world, and I get messages all the time, pictures, everything. So that's the main reason for that page. But to go back to your question, my only closest encounter was about 7 years ago, and this was going on for days, weeks, even months sometimes before I eventually quit doing it. So the first day I went out after this was after watching an episode of Finding Bigfoot. So this was when it's in its prime of, this is one of the biggest shows on TV at the time. And I see tree knocking. What is that? I didn't know that. I didn't know the howling. I'm like, what? I thought, I was like, come on, So I went out, and the first two times I tried, you keep in mind, there's a large part of land. There's creek, swamp back there, alligators, everything you can think of back there.
Right.
And I did the same thing as the show. I took a 2x4, I remember, and slammed it as hard as I could. It made a loud noise, and it even hurt my hands a little bit.
Right.
First 2 or 3 days, I remember, it was like nothing. And then one day I went out, was doing some laundry. I went out, tried it again, and I got a loud noise right back. Now, I was like, startled for a second. I was like, oh, okay, let me try it again. Didn't hear nothing, and then did it again. I just heard a loud popping noise, just loud. This was, I remember I was like, could that be a bird? Could it be, something? I was like, there's no way. So I ran back and I was Googling every type of creature that can make a loud noise, and there was nothing. Nothing that could have ever made any noise, and there's nobody back there. That's completely untouched, other than going to the creek and stuff to fish. And I just remember that. I would do it all the time. It'd be right around the evening time. I'd go out there, just do it. And I wouldn't see nothing, and even though I'd be too afraid at the time, I was a lot younger then, I was even too afraid to go back there. And that was my closest encounter, and I just realized at that point, it's like, that's as close as I'm probably going to get. So, and I'm not, at the time, I didn't have a lot of equipment and anything like that. And you have people that go on these expeditions all the time, and they have expensive equipment, just like how you mentioned about, tracking ghosts and stuff. You have actual legitimate equipment,
right.
And that's very important, which, I get people all the time tell me about their expeditions and stuff. So it's cool to see that.
That's cool. So are you planning anytime soon, any kind of Bigfoot, maybe hunt or anything?
Yeah, I was actually, because my page, to give you a little bit of insight, I created this page in 2012, which is right around the time I started experiencing these things. And so over a little while, it was like a little, it wasn't nothing too serious at first.
Right.
But I've been getting, all of a sudden, my page just starts getting like after like, and I'm just like, whoa, what's going on here? I'm getting messages from people all over the world, and it's mainly Pacific Northwest. I get Hawaii, I get everything. There's people that say, other day somebody just said there's a Bigfoot in Hawaii. I don't believe that, but it's a cool thing.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard even Hawaii. It's crazy to think that, but
yeah, and so nothing was going on for some years, and I just gave up on it. But then, all the support, especially this year, you gave me this opportunity to be on your show. Reignited a passion. I want to actually go out there. Does that mean I'm going to find a Bigfoot and he knocks? Probably not. But to give an overall experience of things and post content for people to see it'd be pretty fun to do. I'm thinking about doing it around June or July. So.
Well, if you do, here you need to start a little GoFundMe or something so you can raise up some money for some equipment, right? Oh, yeah. And then go out and film some of this. All right, I'll even put it on my channel. If you film something, and we'll even put it on there. Maybe we'll even revisit your experience. But if there's anybody ever watching out there, say, hey, I just want to say, look, for those of you watching out there, maybe now or in the future, go fund this guy. Get him out there. Send him on a hunt. All right, go send him on a Bigfoot hunt. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome. So, now speaking of kind of going out there and doing those type of things, let's talk about the shows that are out there or what was out there. Maybe not specifically by name, but maybe just talk about those shows. Because I know a lot of people see those shows, and just some of the people I talk to, it's almost like they see those and go, well, I wonder if I could just go out there and like, I'll let me just show those guys how it's done. I mean, let me just go out there. I bet I could
Yeah.
find this thing. And then
Yeah.
I don't think people realize, but I mean, what do you think about those shows? Do you think that they're going like, you think they're doing a good job, or they're not going deep enough? Is, follow through? What do you think?
So the main show out there is obviously Finding Bigfoot. That's the main, Matt Moneymaker, Bobo, Renee. That's the main, Cliff. That's the main squad of Bigfoot TV. That's the
Right.
big thing.
But do you think it's fluff, or do you think that
Well, I don't think it's fluff because of their backgrounds, and they are actually very dedicated, and BFRO, and they're very in depth with Bigfoot in general. They were doing this well before the show even took off, which they didn't think was going to take off. And so the problem with the shows are, because I've always loved documentaries.
right?
Like Dr. Jeff Meldrum's a big name. I respect him highly. He's very, very, like, if you have any chance, Monster Quest. He's been on almost all the shows, documentaries, everything.
Right.
And he's a legitimate scientist. And so as far as the shows, the problem with shows is they have a runtime and they have a set date. They have seasons. So you're being forced. It's not like you can just go sit out somewhere because the show kind of gets stale. So they have to spice it up. Hey, let's go to California, Washington. Hey, there's a sighting back here 30 years ago. Let's go check it out.
Right.
That was 30 years ago. Just because you're going there for that day, that show, your chances are not going to be great. That's why I tend to lean more towards documentaries, because you have more in depth, way longer, more funding into it. But the shows out there, you have shows like Mountain Monsters, which is obviously it's for gag, it's fluff, as you say. It's obvious. But the thing Finding Bigfoot is it's a blessing and a curse, because it gives more exposure to the Bigfoot world, which we need. Especially for a hardcore audience out there. We don't have much.
Right.
And so it's very important. It's in as far as the shows, again, they have a script, they have seasons, they have to roll with the show, and they have their little tricks they do, if you notice, where before a commercial, everything gets all tense and exciting, and then right when it comes back, it was like, oh, one of the crew members did something stupid, or
it was a squirrel.
It was a squirrel. But they get people like that, and you get you hooked.
Right.
And,
and I think that's going to be TV in general. Just about every reality show seems to be that way, and always something happens, and like, oh my God. And then just they come back, they're like, oh, haha, real funny, and it's something stupid. And you're like, man, why am I watching this? And then you keep watching, right?
Yeah, that's it. You get hooked.
So the shows, I think, just like with anything, I think they're going to open conversation. They're going to elevate awareness. I think the paranormal reality shows had their run for many years. Probably the Bigfoot shows had some run for a little bit, not as long, but I think it's a different genre. I think it's something that is very focused on something almost real based, because when you have legends of Bigfoot, Dracula, werewolves, those type of things, Bigfoot seems to be based more in reality, versus like vampires and things, which seems to be more fantasy. So if you were to plan, like, what do you think would be your ultimate Bigfoot hunt or Sasquatch hunt? What would you want to put together? Like, if you could kind of outline an excursion, what would you like to see?
Okay, so to answer that, I'd be living in a fantasy world, and I would also, I just got to be realistic about it. So I would not be the person for the job, obviously. Neither would 99% of the people, interested in it. The people that would be highly, just qualified for this type of thing, you would have to be trained. especially Army or something like that, to where you're not like just some basic type of training. Like you have to have that type of stillness to you. You have to be patient. You have to know the environment, know what to look for, signs of things, tracks. Look at tree markings. It's like wild boars. They usually like to rush up against trees. People often
Right.
confuse that for certain things, and it's like certain things you have to be just aware. It's like you take a person that's never grew up on the street or something like that. They don't have street smarts. If they've been in the city all their life, you know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
like it's that type of thinking. They're going to be lost on the street. Or in the woods, or something like that. It's like you have to be specifically trained because I see a lot of Bigfoot expeditions, as fun as they are, man. The problem with them is you're first of all looking for a creature that does not want to be found in the first place. And I see people all the time, they have like 10, 20, 30 people. They're going out there making lots of noise. They have lights all over, their foreheads, big bright lights. They're just if they think they're doing something, intelligent as far as tracking Bigfoot. When in reality, this only works for other type of things. You have to have somebody that's willing to sit out there and like a tree stand, deer stand, something, and
Right.
just be patient. Go off, by somewhere there's habitat for them. There's a creek. There's wild game everywhere. It's just things like that, man. And I really hope to see that one day. And the closest we've seen to it is Les Stroud, um, Survivor Man,
Right.
and but I think it was again kind of like a rush show. It was a special. It wasn't nothing that was carried on
Right.
years. Yeah, so that would be my ultimate thing.
I think if I was to try to just put some, I guess off the top of my head, if I was to try to put together a team or something, I would want somebody like a Les Stroud, somebody
Yes.
that's a survivalist
Yeah.
that knows, hey, look, we can sustain ourselves this way. But also, I would want that survivalist to be very knowledgeable in wildlife, local wildlife, like where
Yeah.
we're investigating,
Yep.
and of course tracking. They've got to
Yes.
be good tracking. Maybe they can be Native American. Native Americans are
Oh.
notorious good trackers.
Yeah.
But I would want sort of that all-in-one expert on tracking, history, and the wildlife of that area. I would want to take at least a doctor or a scientist that
Yes.
also is very adept at the shoes or the footprints, right?
Yes. Like
Um,
Dr. Jeff Meldrum.
right, right. Take him, but
Yes.
we got to camouflage him up, right? We got to get him. We can't have him
Yes.
just out there nerding through the woods.
Exactly.
We got to
Yeah.
teach him how to be like that quiet, stealthy nerd. So let's do that. I think
Yeah.
that would be good. And then of course some high definition cameras with a lot of backup batteries because you're not going to be able to just pop your generator. But
Yeah.
you're going to have to go deep. I think you'd have to go deep. Probably go where the most concentrated sightings are, and then go a
Yes.
little deeper in there, and hang out, camp out, and listen to the survivalists. I think that would be probably what I would try to plan if I was to do something like that.
Oh yeah.
That's
You
my
get.
opinion.
Yeah. So again, it's like you have people that study UFOs. Now, a lot of sightings, obviously, come by way of. I mean, it's coming from outer space. This is all over the world. There's
Or are they?
sightings, or are they? Yeah. So the people that are hardcore UFO researchers, they have websites that are dedicated to certain hot spots and this and that. You have to have people that are like, imagine it's way better to go out in the woods and have that experience trying to find Bigfoot than what is your like? If you really think about your chances of trying to find a UFO, that is outer space if they are, and that's all over the world, and that's like your chances are so low. Like you're not in a specific habitat; it's all over the sky. But you have people that know that they look at trends of certain things and they start to follow a pattern that this is a hot spot. And again, it's as you say, you have someone like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and he has so many Bigfoot casts. That's why I would love for him to do something like that, man. And he's done it a few times actually on expeditions, and he knows the shape of the foot, the difference between human if it's faked. You know, 'cause people like to carve wooden ones and try and fake them in the wood sometimes. That's what they like
Right.
to do.
What
And
does that now? What does that do for the industry as a whole
specifically what?
when they're out there faking them?
Okay, so just like anything, you have people that fake, and you have the thing about it is you would like to, kind of demonize people that fake stuff like that, but you have a lot of people that do it just out of fun, like a gag, right? It's just like, I found Bigfoot, look, they have a guy running in a suit, it just looks stupid, but I get sometimes a messages from somebody say, here's some Bigfoot pictures, and it's this dumbest thing you could possibly see, but um, any type of conspiracy thing about that, or UFOs, ghosts, anything like that in paranormal, you're gonna have people that fake, and obviously it diminishes because you have people that take that as face value rather than looking at like a page like mine or a page like yours where you have open conversation and people that know they're talking about, and rather than people that's faking stuff, they put it online, people see it, they take it at face value, and that's what their impression of it is.
Now, sort of one of the, I guess, major things is going to be a lot of people that I've talked to so far that's been, they watch the shows, they're fans of the Bigfoot thing. Yeah. Right now, they're saying that everything, the wheels are kind of spinning. There's nothing really new. Everybody's pretty much said what needs to be said about there and speculated what they need to speculate about. Is there anything new that you can add to this conversation at all?
So, I think, and of course, I've watched so many documentaries that you wouldn't even believe. I've watched so many videos. I mean, I've looked I've looked at videos where I just actually contemplated even looking into this anymore, where you just people that they make some really stupid videos, but I'm a fan of it. I'm interested in it. So looking out for stuff like that, I think that if I was approached, say, by I think it was Animal Planet that did Finding Bigfoot, or I can't remember now.
Right.
But if say I was approached by it, I would give them just a great overall basis of what, like, if somebody wants to like legitimize this, like if you not just some like gag show that you want to just do for a couple seasons, like if you actually want to like do something, go in depth with it. Bring people that know what they're talking about. That doesn't have histories of faking stuff, because there's some shows where there's people on them that have a history of faking evidence, but
right.
They still put them on, and then you see like reviews. I've always hated that. Even some of these people that like to fake stuff, they're so passionate about it that they want it to be real. You know what I mean? They want it to be out there, even though they know it themselves. Like I know Bigfoot exists. I know it, but you have people that don't have the proof, and they just want to get it out there. That's why I created a page. I don't want to fake anything. I don't want to lie to anybody. I haven't seen one, never heard one, as far as speech. But I just don't think that if they want to, like, again, you said the wheels are spinning, like everything's been seen, done. I think it's the perfect time. You have cutting edge technology today. You have people that are more than willing to go out there and, I'm sure, to do something show wise, that are passionate. And I think we need something like that because in recent times, you're getting shows like Mountain Monsters, for example, that I mentioned. It's purely for jokes. It's a fun show. It's jokes, but there's some episodes you watch and you're just like, I don't even watch TV anymore.
Right.
And you can't have that, because when you have people saying, "Oh, here's the Mothman, here's the Dogman, the Werewolf Man," you have people looking at that, and you're like, these people are finding all these things every episode that people have been looking their whole life for,
Right.
and it's just it hurts. It hurts to watch some of this stuff, and it hurts to have that accepted, because you brought up a good point. A lot of things have been done already. It's a very,
Right.
very good point, and that needs to be talked about more.
Well, and I think there's a certain ratio of evidence per investigation. And I know even when my wife and I was doing investigations,
Yeah,
with our team, it's like there's only so much evidence that you get. You may go to investigation and you may not hardly have anything,
yeah,
not one single EVP, or even maybe if you do, it's like one horrible C class, EVP, and you may not get any pictures. Again, you might go 4 or 5 investigations, you only get 2 or 3 scraps of evidence, nothing maybe even really solid. So sometimes when you see these shows and it's like every episode you're seeing like all this evidence and all these things happening and all these things, you're like, these people
yeah,
must be like the luckiest investigators
yeah,
ever.
yeah,
So that's kind of my problem too, is then you're trying to watch and you're trying to be involved and you're trying to learn, and you are trying to
yeah,
take them seriously, but then at the same time when you're out in the field and the amount of evidence, and it's just that's some of the problems that I have with TV versus reality, and that's why I encourage people to seek the truth, really.
and and to touch on that a little bit more, it's like there's no shame in accepting that you don't find anything, like you said, with ghosts or UFOs or Bigfoot. It's like there's no shame in that. The thing of it is that you're passionate about it, you learn more, and you went on. That's experience in and of itself. But the thing that I love about my page, and I love about your page, is my page says, "Hey, I'm not a person that's a know-it-all. I'm finding Bigfoot every week, and I'm posting pictures of footprints, because that's not me."
Right.
My page, just like your page, it gives people a platform to, "Hey, I found this, I found that," and we start to track things like, "Hey, there's a lot of sightings coming from the people from the again, it's mainly Pacific Northwest, but again, I have people all over the United States, Canada,
Sure.
all over the world, all the time, man. Even the Australian Yowie, I get a few of those." Um, and it's an overall experience, but you have people that it gives them a platform even though they don't have one. They can tip you, "Hey, this is my experience," and you never know, what if somebody comes on your show and gives you some cool stuff? What if somebody sends me a message of some cool stuff? It's we're here, we're not, so we're here, and people know where to come and find us and give us some tips. So it's just cool,
Right.
and, yeah.
Well, and I think having healthy, real discussion about some things
Yes.
matters,
Yes.
because if you get where you're just blowing things out of proportion and everything becomes hype and all that, I mean, aside from maybe clickbait titles on YouTube, I mean, obviously you want to elevate your content
Yeah.
because you need to get up on the algorithms, but that ultimately what that does is it helps to just spread the word. The content in the video is what matters to me about when we
Exactly.
talk about these things and we try to have these conversations. Now, I do know that um, cover ups, all
Yeah.
right? So, how do you think that the government has found these creatures at all and covered them up, or what?
Now, if you're asking about UFOs, obviously,
No, Bigfoot.
um,
Like just
oh
for
yeah, I'm
Sasquatch. Have they
yeah,
come across Sasquatch? Like,
yeah, I know what you're pertaining to, but for UFOs, it's obviously like cover-ups. Like you just it goes, it's right there, you know, neck and neck. But with Bigfoot, I honestly don't think. I don't know if there would even be a reason to cover it up. You know what I mean? It's first of all, we don't know how many there are. We don't know if anyone's ever like found physical, actual evidence of it. And it's just one of those things like people are dedicated to finding this creature versus people that you'd say like cover up would be like government or something. I don't think in the first place they're out there trying to find it. Um, but you never know. That's a conspiracy. That's a part of the paranormal environment. But if you're asking me about UFO or something, obviously I would say okay, yeah, But for Sasquatch, I just think it's the one that plays hard to get. That's I don't know. You
Right.
know.
Well, and I personally think that if there was any kind of cover-ups,
Yeah.
um, I think that if the government was covering them up, it was because what they found was something more supernatural related. We talked earlier about, are they supernatural or are they an actual species? And again, there's been a lot of people that go with the supernatural side of things, that again, that they were these creatures from a past time, and
Yeah.
that they have these abilities, and that's why we can't find them. So it's possible that if they did find one, and they took blood samples or something, I would say that that would, to me, would be, if they're covering something up. Now, if they came across something that was a natural species and was like, hey, we discovered a new ape and this is it.
Yeah.
Um, then I could see where they would probably go ahead and release that information if it was something. And probably the only other thing I would say is, if not, it also could be because maybe they fear that if they say, oh yes, these do exist, that, think about the national park tourism.
Yeah.
That may decline. I hate to
Yeah.
say it. I mean, you're going to have a lot of people going, "Oh my God, they're real," but then that
Yeah.
confirmation may actually scare some people, and I'm not sure if I think the government feels like that would be the case. So let's not say anything, because we want people to go to these parks. We want people to have this experience. We want these hunters to go out there and keep chasing things that they feel are unknown. I mean, would you concur, or do you have a difference of opinion on that?
Well, so obviously this has been talked about. I don't know if you ever came across the Bigfoot researcher, whatever you may call him. His name's Todd Standing. He's a big name in the Bigfoot world. Some people have mixed opinions about him. I like a lot of his documentaries, a lot of his work. Some people think he's probably altered some videos, if you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But overall, he actually went to court. He's from Canada, so forgive me. I don't understand everything how it works, but they basically he wanted Bigfoot protection, even though they don't acknowledge it as being real. He acknowledges it, so he actually went to wherever they go, their court or whatever, and um, basically got to where there's protection, so you can't actually harm Bigfoot if you do come across it. Now, as far as Bigfoot being found, the big question, one of the biggest questions that linger in my mind is how many are there, in the first place? And even if they were to be found, like we say, like it was like Africa, right? Africa, the uh, apes, gorillas, they are very hard to find. They're not just roaming around. They hunt. They travel in packs, similar to a lot of people. Equate to Bigfoot videos of evidence showing them travel as a family. There's a few of those videos. They're traveling in packs. Like there's a famous one that blew up, went viral. I mean, where they're showing them traveling a pack in the snow. And so, if in Africa, those woods have been explored so many times for however many years, thousands. They've been explored. The people know their land, and people have to take them there. People that are native to Africa to find these apes and gorillas, and all bundled up in deep part of the jungle. Now, as far as Bigfoot, you have to think about all the land in North America that hasn't been explored. You
Right.
have to you have to think about the backwoods. You have to think about we have mountain lions, we have grizzly bears, black bears, you know, uh, uh, we have so many harmful creatures. They have lions and stuff as well, but they are mass. Africa's been explored. It's been explored. North America, there's still so many parts that are protected that you can't go to, that just do not have any human interaction with nature there. And that's the perfect environment. It's peaceful, quiet, and even if they did see you, they wouldn't know who you were, so they'd be probably more frightened to approach you. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things.
Right. And you think they're migratory?
Yeah, I do think they migrate. It's weird because you don't just have Pacific Northwest. Excuse me. It's has the most sightings. It's hot spot, as you said earlier. That's common knowledge in the Bigfoot world. Pacific Northwest is the go-to place. Washington, North California, stuff like that. But you have places like Florida, Skunk Ape. You have it's not just a certain area. It's because you have to think that a lot of people think of New York as a big city, but a lot of New York is woods.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people don't know that. They just think of city. As soon as
Yeah,
you
they
hear
go right to
California,
New York City.
exactly. That's all you think about. But there's woods all over North America. There's uninhabited places. There's swamps, creeks, alligators, bears, mountain lions, coyotes, water moccasins, pythons, uh, brown recluses. These are all dangerous things that you have to be mindful about. You don't just go wander around somebody's, woods and stuff like that. You have to be knowledgeable, and it's a very serious thing. This is all over North America, and a lot of people just don't realize that. They just think, up there somewhere, all the woods. It's all over.
Now, a big common question with a lot of maybe naysayers or skeptics is they say, well, where's the body? Where's the bones? How come
Yeah,
we haven't come across that?
yeah, and so that's a big one for me because it's very easy to explain. So you see a lot of like you said, a lot of critics, they say we don't find bones. That's the big indicator. Bears, like their bones in general are hard to come by. They're just not something you just walk up on. A lot of people don't know that. They just think nothing of it. You just find bear carcasses. A lot of the time, it's very hard to come by them. Um, but obviously, they're not standing up, and taking a shovel and burying their own dead. They just have certain ways of doing it. You never know how some of the things go. You have to think about nature. You have to think about just how all kinds of things alter things. But as far as Bigfoot, for there to be so many sightings I mean, this is not just Patterson Gremlin 60s. This is hundreds of years
Right.
sightings. There's markings in caves, all of that. So obviously they would have to be intelligent. One of the things I would like to say is, how do you know? Maybe they saw the natives, and maybe they learned something from them, from all those years ago. Because they probably don't want nothing with the modern day world. They probably want nothing to do with it. I'm sure the natives from all those way back then were so in tune with nature, so peaceful and just accepting and respectful of nature, that they probably were just more accustomed to that. So as far as intelligence, I think they do bury their own dead because they have to. We have no bones, nothing like that. So they would have to do that. So that's my main idea on it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's possible. I've heard the theory of burying their own dead. I do know that in wooded areas, things like that, I believe that the decomposure rate of bones is a lot faster.
Yeah,
And they've proved this even with chimpanzees, why we don't tend to come across chimpanzee skeletons when they die in the wild.
yeah,
Because again, there's a much between the scavengers and all that stuff, but also the breakdown of the bones in those the wooded areas
yeah,
is a lot faster than, say, like if they went out in the desert and fell down and died.
yeah,
So, so I do know that does kind of lean toward that as well. And I also
yeah,
have heard that there was some experienced hunters that have hunted in the Pacific Northwest, out in the woods. And one guy said that he hunted the woods for 30 years and only came across maybe 2 bear carcasses, like bear remains.
Exactly.
And then it kind of trickled down. There was more deer. There was more. So if there's like this trickle down effect, and say the Sasquatch is at the top of the pyramid out there, then it's very feasible that if he only came across 2 bear, that's maybe why he never came across, obviously, a Sasquatch skeleton. But do you feel that they are at the top of the food chain out there in their wherever their area is?
I think, well, first of all, there's been many different speculations about their diet. Obviously, to be that massive, they would probably, obviously consume a lot of meat, you would think. But gorillas, I mean, they eat pounds of, plants, stuff like that, pandas, bamboo trees. These are massive animals, and they don't feed on, a bunch of animals, to get their protein, get their size. So Bigfoot, of course, how big he is, to be 7-10 feet tall, 5 to 1,000 pounds, which has been reported, because you have to think about, because a lot of people say, well, how do you know their weight? Well, you can tell because of the impression of their footprints and, in the wild and stuff. So you can, measure that. And, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he'll tell you all about that if you just watch a few videos or documentaries. But to give you an idea about their diet and size and stuff like that. So as far as top on the food chain, I don't know. It'd be hard to, give you a straight answer on that. But
I think they gotta be. I think they would have to be at least at the top, much like humans. They could be where, like a bear, for example. If a bear and a Sasquatch meet up in the woods, it's possible that they may not mess with each other. Like there could be a standoff vocally. And it's possible that bears are just like, we're just not going to mess with them. And then, of course, it's possible that the Sasquatch like, we're just not going to mess with that bear. And they're going to, eat fish and deer or berries or, things like that. So that's kind of my little 2 cents, I guess. So now what do you think about also, because, you talk about reports when people speculate on their height, when like some of the witnesses, of course the depressions of the footprints. Also, what do you say about the people? There has been actually a fair amount of reports of red lights coming from the eyes. That has been a pretty significant amount of reports.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not as common. Also, some say that they can hypnotize from a stare. So what do you make of that?
So I'm very familiar with these. One of the skunk ape photos, one of the famous photos of the skunk ape, which is primarily down in Florida. I had someone the other day say the skunk ape is what they call it in Hawaii too. But there's a famous picture of a Bigfoot sighting, right up on it. And the story behind it looks really legitimate. Like it's very hard to question it, but the red eyes from the taking the picture. So I've heard that many times about the red eyes. I think that was probably like the picture as you see it, like with even humans, like they have some weird glow in their eye or other animals. And as far as the hypnotized, I think I've heard that one quite a bit as well. The hypnotizing of their eyes. Now, if you put yourself in that position of you're walking up on a creature that's probably 7 to 10 feet tall. It's very, very massive. It's probably you're just scared. Like you don't even know what to do. Like, you walk up on a bear. Just think how scared you'd be on a bear. Now think about someone that looks like a monster out of a comic book or a horror movie, a creep show. That's very massive, hairy. Maybe that's probably why the hypnotizing reports are coming. It's you'd be so scared.
So just by spotting them, you think like, hey, naturally you're just going to probably be hypnotized naturally by spotting them. maybe a little poo in the pants, right? Do you think that comes with it? Is that a power that Bigfoot has to make you poo your pants a little?
No question. No question. No, I mean, you just the amount of fear you'd go numb probably. You wouldn't believe it. Like you just and like I've seen reports of people that they say that they just faint. I've seen some of those. They say that they stop on the road because how many sightings you hear, but you see a Bigfoot crossing the road. That's been multiple times. So many sightings of that. But they just stop in traffic. You got other cars behind you, but they're so bewildered, of what they just witnessed. They just saw something so massive that's just on 2 feet walking, and that's a whole fear in itself.
Right. Now, as we get toward the back end of the show here, one of the things we were just talking about was sort of that fight or flight.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be frozen. Now, others may want to fight. They may want to shoot Bigfoot. So that's going to be the big question here is, should Bigfoot, if found, should we kill the Sasquatch for scientific purposes, or should we leave it alone and let it do its thing?
So, obviously, this is in the Department of Ethics. What do you personally believe about that? Now, you get people that just nonchalant, hey, I'm tired of people telling me Bigfoot's not real. I've seen it before, and if they walk on the end, they have a gun, probably going to do it. But you have people like myself that say there's a respect level there. You know what I mean? That's just, obviously, I'd be lying if I said, man, if we just found a carcass and, sucks to die, but hey, we got science now, you know what I'm saying? But a part of me, I don't want anything bad to happen. That'd be cool if we could catch it, take like how they tag certain like whales or certain species in the ocean. They put a tag on them, let them roam free so they can study it and see where it goes. But they don't hurt it, They just do a quick little prick, get some sample,
right.
and that's it, That's how I would love for it to go about.
Right. I think in the perfect world, tranquilizer would be, would be perfect. But most people don't just run around with a tranquilizer gun either. They're usually out hunting, and they got a hunting rifle,
Just like one of the things, like you just brought up a very, very strong point. Just like, people aren't in the back of the woods in remote areas with the latest technology of like an iPhone or the best cameras. That's why you always get these crappy camera quality videos, because people think iPhones are everywhere. They think your local guy that's probably in the middle of nowhere has an iPhone. People expect too much of the best scenario. First off, it's rare to find one, run into one. And the second, you expect these people to have all this technology like myself. I don't have all this. If you mentioned GoFundMe and stuff, that'd be perfect. But like right now, I don't have glow in the dark or infrared cameras. I don't have all these super sophisticated things that it would take to give you a serious edge. So
right,
yeah,
And I think people also don't realize that even if you go and have an infrared camera, just like in ghost hunting world, it doesn't mean you're just going to take these great infrared shots like the TV series. A lot of times you have to get infrared extensions and that can actually beam out further and all these other things. So it's not as easy as people may, or as people may think, to try and capture these extremely obviously rare moments.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely relate on that. So I want to ask you a few fun questions. We have covered a lot of topics tonight regarding the Sasquatch. What do you like to I guess one thing real quick is, do you like saying Sasquatch or Bigfoot?
Now, it's a hard one, but see, Sasquatch originally was called Sasquatch. That's how it originally was called. Sasquatch is more of a modern day term, but it's originally Sasquatch from Native American. If I remember that correctly. It's been a little bit, but I saw that years ago.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, but it was Sasquatch.
No fact checking on this show. We don't fact check. We just say stuff. Anyways.
Yeah. But the Bigfoot name is like, the thing about it is ghost is ghost. That's what you hear. Like, your spirit ghost. It sounds cool, but as far as Sasquatch and Bigfoot, there's too much of like a comedic side to that name, Bigfoot. Like, it's just people just immediately, you hear Bigfoot, they just want to laugh,
Right.
because it's like, oh, a Bigfoot. They just inflate it, rather than what it could be, where it is,
So when you want to sound educated, you say Sasquatch, right?
Yeah.
But then when you're just goofing around, you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's for the eye rollers, right?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so a couple fun questions. One is, if let's say you came across the Bigfoot, all right, this is going to be Bigfoot related, and let's say he could talk. What would you want him to tell you?
I would. Well, man, I've thought about Bigfoot talking, but never thought English. But that's pretty cool. It's a cool question. But if it tell me something, I would just say, what do you want? Like, what is your history? Where'd you come from? What do you want? Like, do you want to be totally left alone? Like, that'd be cool questions if it could talk. But that's in a different realm of, possibility. But, that'd be honestly be cool. That's a cool question.
Okay. All right. And this is another fun one. Doesn't even have to be Sasquatch related. But I wanted to start asking all my guests this question is, if you could go back in time, anywhere in time, you get 1 hour and you can't interfere. So you're pretty much like this ghost. So you're going to be invisible. But if you could go and observe 1 hour of history, when and where and why would you go?
I would say, after giving this serious thought, I would say my original thing was to see George Washington being inaugurated and seeing how the whole time, just getting after all those long wars and everything, and just see how they would do it, how they would used to talk. That'd be one of my biggest things. But the pyramids, building the pyramids, that is something that went over my head before being asked this question, because that's I've watched so many documentaries on the building of the pyramids.
You're stealing my answer.
But that's a very, very good answer.
That's all right. No, the George Washington thing's pretty cool that you brought that up. I thought that was pretty neat. But so you're saying you'd also like to see maybe the pyramids?
Yeah, I didn't think about it until you brought it up, because it's like, when you think about the pyramids, there's so much conspiracy around it. Did aliens help? How do they do it? We can't reconstruct it today with the modern technology.
Right.
There's batteries, energy systems, there's water. There's all kinds of conspiratorial things about it, and it's just like, it's cool.
I just think it would confirm a lot of things. That's for sure.
Yes.
By knowing a few things in that time frame, I think we would confirm a few multiple things. But yeah, so that's cool. I want to give you a chance as we wrap up the show. I want to give you a chance to maybe talk about what you got going on, what's some of the future goals you have with even your current social media. Where do you go from here now with Bigfoot Hunters? What do you have planned? And if you want to shout out anything, any YouTube or Facebook channels, this is your chance to have a little bit of spotlight on you and to let the people out there know what's going on in your life coming up.
Yes, it's a very good question. And so the Bigfoot Hunters is something I've been doing since 2012. Obviously, I'm very, very super young. Just got out my teens not too long ago. So this is something that I've been a fan of for so long. And, I didn't think my page would take off like it's been. I'm getting opportunities like to be on your show. I'm getting, tons of really passionate people that love to just, even if it's like the littlest tip, hey, I just seen something the other day, I seen something years ago. That is truly awesome to have people, a conversation. Now, as far as my future plans for it, so this whole past year is my page been blowing up, and I thought about it. I would like to turn it more into a business, probably. As shirts. I have people ask me, "Hey, you have any shirts? Do you have a website?" Website, which is not hard to make. I would like to create one of those. I just have my page, but Bigfoot Hunter T-shirts, because when you think about it, I don't want to be some like business type. Just that's what it's for. But as you mentioned, about the spinning of the wheels and how everybody's seen Bigfoot. Bigfoot's kind of on the decline of popularity in shows lately. So T-shirts, hey, more awareness. Hey, it's more people that are being fans of it.
Right.
And so I would love to do something with T-shirts. I know a lot of people are interested in it, and it'd be something that's cool. Cheap T-shirts. Nothing expensive, stupid. Just have people that are genuine fans of it. And that's my plan is for it to keep growing, and I would love to do this show again in the future. Whenever it'd be cool. There's plenty more stuff we could talk about, and it's cool little opportunities like this to expand, grow, and have a conversation for everybody to go to, and
Yeah.
it's cool. I just love the whole experience with it. I just want to keep growing and grow.
Now, do you have a YouTube, or are you going to plan on doing some video stuff, or?
As far as video stuff, I would love to do something like that in the future, because I have done YouTube for years with other side projects, but nothing related to Bigfoot. Because the thing about, like I said earlier in the podcast, one of the main reasons why I created the page, Bigfoot Hunters, is because I'm not out there with infrared cameras, deer cams,
Right.
trail cams, all these different types of things, sonar, like this super technological things that people with super high budgets can afford. I have a place to where everybody can help me out with that. I'm not alone. I have people that are
Right.
fans. It's not fake.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. And I just want to say, Dave, thank you so much for coming on this show
Thank you, man.
and talking about, certainly the word expert, whenever you're talking about like the paranormal field, Bigfoot, those type of things, it's really subjective.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a passion and you take time to learn and you study and you have your theories and all those things, I think that's just as important, because again, to me there's no real true experts. Now, I do look at it as, some people have maybe more field experience and
Yeah.
things like that, and that's certainly valuable.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to say, though, I do appreciate you coming on here. I think we've definitely covered a lot of
Oh yeah.
things. There's probably so many other areas we could have dove deeper into as well.
Yeah.
Again, I love that. And again, for the people out there that watch us in the future, if you want to support Dave and everything, head over to Bigfoot Hunters Facebook, click on it. Again, I'll try to make sure I end up putting it in the link at some
Yeah.
point when I do the
Sure.
finalizing, when everything with YouTube settles down and all that. You have to go in later. But I'll put all the links in there for your Facebook. And, I do hope to see you do more, maybe even video wise, even if you get out there and you try to do some videos out in the woods, trying to see if you can get some capture, some knocking, just some things I think would be really cool. I hope to see that happen for you. But again, next week, we're going to do another show. Again, we're probably about halfway through the first season, I think. So I think things have been going pretty well for the show. I'm not sure what subject I'm going to do next week. I've got a few things in mind. I've got a whole list of subjects, trust me. But as far as which ones, it always depends on what guests are coming on and all that good stuff. And what and I get requests, just like I had people requesting Bigfoot and things. So I hope they enjoy this episode. But other than that, click on our social medias, whether it's Dave or mine. I hope you guys click share and like, please, because all the shares, all the subs, all that, even buying merchandise in the future, all those things help to support the cause of what we're doing. with the theories and raising awareness and being able to do more and more and more. Because again, the bigger this message spreads, the more I'll do as well. So other than that, we'll see you guys next week. And remember, seek the truth.
That's right. Appreciate it. Thank you.